Welcome to the Big Bag. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by Nick Brooks, who is on the other side of the Thames in South London. I'm in North London, or actually East London, but you know what I'm saying if you understand. I'm going to call it geopolitics of London. We are here today to talk about T20 cricket. That's what the Big Bag does. We're a T20 cricket show on YouTube. Leave us your comments, leave us your thoughts. Tell us what you think, what you've been watching, what you've not been watching, anything you've missed. We'll talk about the IPL. We'll talk a little bit about the PSL as well. It's WrestleMania season in the UK. You get Friday and Monday off for WrestleMania. Like all the banks are shut. That's a government thing. The WrestleMania of cricket is, of course, the IPL. And we're right in the middle of it, Nick, aren't we?
Yeah, man, halfway stage. The good games have been keeping on coming this week. Really exciting one between Punjab and KKR on Monday, Tuesday.
Really exciting one.
Yeah, wild one, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely wild. So let's just talk about this for a moment before we get into the other games. Nick, right at the beginning of the season, if you go back 4 or 5 weeks ago, we were talking about scores of 300. Over
yeah,
here, we're seeing a team struggle to get to three figures.
now we're getting 112 plays, 95. Absolute madness. As you know, Marky, I'm a huge fan of Punjab's batting. I was betting on them to make a big score, and then I was cussing my TV as wicket after wicket went down. I was thinking there is absolutely no way they defend this. I think up till that point, they'd had the worst bowling in the tournament. They were going at as a unit at like 10.7, and then Yuzi Chahal just has a day out. Panic seems to spread faster than COVID in 2020 through KKR's dugout. And yeah, just I couldn't believe it.
What a tournament this is turning out to be. And I think what we saw in that game is the most extreme example of a trend that we've seen through a lot of this tournament so far, which is that chasing sides really struggle to get going if the kind of top three don't get going. And suddenly it feels like that pressure seems to really push down very quickly, and wickets become easier and runs become harder to come by for the team batting, right? And I'm kind of surprised that the amount of development we've seen in T20 cricket and how much better players have got at playing this format, that we see that is a trend that's developed at this point.
Yeah, it was a weird one in that game because Rahane and Raghuvanshi put together like a nice partnership. I think it was worth 55, and they seem to have kind of steadied the ship and got KKR out of that little early rut, having gone 7 for 2. But I think what we're seeing with them specifically, and also maybe a slightly wider trend that we've touched on before. I mean, KKR have got a massively underperforming lower middle order, right? Rinku hasn't come off at all. There's been very little from Dre Russ, and it's been a lean patch for Ramandeep too. And across the league, I think you're seeing a lot of teams who are really good 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 4, and then slightly weaker or with players out of form in those 5, 6, 7 regions. And so we aren't seeing teams kind of finish as strongly as we expect. There have been a couple of kind of crumbles. We saw Delhi crumble against Mumbai on Sunday with the hat-trick of runouts, another wild game. And then totally crazy scenes again yesterday as Rajasthan kind of conspired to lose a game that they looked dead set on winning. One thing that I think is worth touching on, Marky, is the new rules that have been brought in by the IPL this season have really been effective and helped bowlers, right? We saw on Sunday for Mumbai how that ball change brought Khan Sharma and the spinners back into the game. And we got a great example last night with Mitchell Stark's Yorkers at the death of how much saliva is having an impact, right? Bowlers able to get a bit of tail at the back end and make it much easier for batters, much harder for batters to hit it out of the ground, right? You would have backed Rajasthan 30 off the last three or whatever it was to chase that 9 times out of 10. And in the end, Stark was just too good for them.
People thought I was taking the piss when I said the return of Saliva is quite a big deal. I absolutely wasn't. I was like, Spit is in form at the moment. Like,
Yes, spits back, baby. And
Spit
I
is back.
And I saw a stat about how it's actually also coming in quite early. So there's starting to be a bit of reverse as early as like the sixth, seventh over. So it's not just, right at the back end. It's changing games throughout the innings. And maybe it's had a part to play in why we're not getting, as many 200 to 20 plus scores as we were last year.
It's we are halfway through a season that was straight off after a mega auction. And I wonder how many of these sides actually have massive buyer's remorse at the moment, or kind of regret some of their decisions from that auction, because suddenly, I mean, coming into this, I mean, I keep talking to you this loads, and I should declare an interest here. I think it's because nominally, at least, I kind of pretend to support Lucknow Supergiants. Reality is, I don't really support any of them, but they came in with so much beef and so much heat on them, and actually, they've been kind of all right, and their team looks kind of balanced. Where some of the other sides, the Sunrisers had an incredible run to the final last year. Super Kings, you always think are going to be there or thereabouts. And Rajasthan Royals, me and you thought in particular that actually they might be a kind of dark horse of the whole thing. And those three teams have totally struggled to put performances in, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it just shows how little coming into the IPL and how much players' swings in form can kind of change things around, right? I mean, I didn't expect that Lucknow were going to get the returns from Mitchell Marsh and Aidan Markram that they have done. And Nicky P's been out of this world, best batter in the league. People talking about him mastering completing 2020. It's just crazy praise and for crazy batting, right? He looks like he can hit everything for six at the moment. And then at the other end of the spectrum, they've got like great returns out of Digvesh Rathi, a guy who I think basically no one had heard of coming into this tournament. I absolutely love watching him bowl. He's got long flowing locks. There's a bit of Narayan in the way he hides the ball. There's a bit of Imi Tahir in his bounce, and he keeps doing this celebration. The notebook and the wicket, he keeps getting fined for it. I think he's on about 30 lakhs. So by the end of the season, he's going to be losing money to play in the IPL, but he's making a shitload of fans. But yeah, so I think Lucknow give you a sense of how you can't really know too much going into the IPL. I think in hindsight, it's easy to see like a team like Rajasthan where they do have problems. They haven't got as much from the top three of Jaiswal, Samson, and Parag as they would have wanted. And then after six, or with Hasaranga not being in great batting form, their batting drops off a cliff, right? I actually think their bowling's been all right since Jofra got back into form. Our Lankan spinners have done okay, and Sandeep is pretty good. Deshpande's been a bit of a disaster for them. But yeah, man, you just can't predict anything in this league. I remember a month ago sitting here and saying Karun Nair could maybe be an impact sub who comes in and steadies the ship. He plays his first IPL game in about 40 years on Sunday and is like slamming Bumrah all over the place, hitting 89 or 40. So I think, yeah, it's just fascinating. It's constantly surprising. I think it's got good messaging to us pundits who sit before the tournament and like to think that we know what's going on, that we have absolutely no idea. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if at this stage, if I don't know, Peter Siddle gets a replacement contract, comes in and bowling 150, because like I do not know anything about cricket as far as I can tell.
I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? That's why it's considered the jewel in the kind of T20 crown, right? Pun intended. Um, I, because it is unpredictable. I think the teams like there's a kind of. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was watching Rajasthan Royals kind of fall apart yet again. And I was like, there's a kind of perception in the IPL about which teams are well run and which teams aren't. Um, and actually, I'm starting to be of the opinion that the teams that we perceive to be well run are the teams that are just the best at PR. But actually, when it comes to putting performances in on the pitch and picking balanced sides and looking for players that are going to win you stuff, then it kind of doesn't matter how good or bad your PR is. It's not going to really make a difference, right? It's getting that auction right, getting the balance of the team right, making sure the players are in form when they're playing. A player that was in absolutely sensational form since we last spoke was Abhishek Sharma on, was it Sunday, when he got
Yeah.
his
Uh,
his
he
one
hasn't
four
been able
one.
to buy a run all year and then just comes out and absolutely smokes Punjab's bowlers to every corner of the ground, to the cleaners. I think what was amazing was, what were they chasing down, 240 odd, and from
Yeah,
8 9 overs it felt totally inevitable that they were going to chase those down comfortably. I reckon they could have chased 270, 280 had they had to. uh Abhishek rode his luck a little bit. I think he was dropped a couple of times out off a
he
no
was.
ball,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's just clean striking. And when he and Travis Head are in form, you, Sunrisers still look a very daunting prospect, right? Interesting game coming up this afternoon between SRH and Mumbai Indians. I think, looking at the table, what of those teams both got 2 wins from their first 7 games. Uh, so yeah, both on 4 points. Oh no, from their first 6 games. So I mean, I think whoever wins that could be back into the fray. If you lose that and you're, what, 2 wins from your first 7, you probably got to get to 8 or 9. So it's looking like a tall order for whoever loses that game. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say about teams who are well run and who are poorly run, Marky. I mean, we always talk about Rajasthan and Chennai being the well run teams. I mean, Chennai are pretty much always in the playoffs. But looking at their team this year, I think they've got it massively wrong. I thought kind of before the tournament that it was their batting, that there was a lot of pressure on Gaikwad and Ravindra and Dubey. Gaikwad's out for the tournament. Ravindra, he's delivered in flashes, but he hasn't had that breakout year. And it's been a strange one for Shivan Dubey, who I think, one innings aside, has looked a lot more tentative than we're used to seeing him. Teams have really starved him of spin, basically refusing to bowl spinners whenever he's batting. And I mean, apart from that, they just seem to be really short of power. They're tinkering quite a bit. Uh, yeah, I mean, to me, they look odds-on favourites to finish bottom just because of the lack of muscle in their batting.
yeah, and it just feels like this might be the end of a cycle for them a little bit, and that they're going to have to go away. And I know it's difficult to do this the year after a mega auction, go away and go, maybe we've got some of this wrong. Maybe you know, Ratchan's going to be a great player, but maybe he's not the person that we wanted. He's not quite doing what we need him to do. Maybe it's time to, I don't want to make any enemies. Maybe it's time to think about how much MS Dhoni, and I know he just got a Man of the Match award, is contributing to this team overall. Can we really have a wicket keeper who's potentially coming into bat for the last 3 balls off an innings? If he, in an ideal kind of situation, is that quite right? Jadeja, is he the person who's going to, what kind of player is he going to be in kind of 2, 3, 4 years time? Because I'd imagine it's probably a 2 year rebuild for them if they wanted to kind of compete again. Depending, obviously, they tinker with the way players move in between mega auctions all the time. So maybe they might be able to kind of get the trades that they need and bring in the players that can kind of rebuild the franchise a little bit. But I think there's a lot of work
Yeah,
um,
a
that
lot
needs to
of
be done.
work. I agree. And I mean, you look at some of the guys who've been playing in their middle order, right? Tripathi keeps getting games. Vijay Shankar's come in because Huda has had a bit of a shocker and gone out. And you ask how many other IPL teams are those guys getting into at the moment, and I reckon not too many. I think probably the positive thing is you look at what Punjab have unearthed in like Priyansh Iyer, a guy who's come into the IPL having hardly played in the SMAT. And, clearly the talent's around and out there. I thought Sheikh Rashid looked really good when he came in for them the other night. So I think they just need to change their approach a little bit. Maybe the days of you strangling by spinner Chepuk are numbered, although Noor has been fantastic for them all year. He's been their standout player. But yeah, definitely a bit of soul searching for Steve Fleming and Chennai, unless they can have a really dramatic turnaround over the next 7 games.
Can I ask you a question? Do you watch Ashwin's YouTube channel? Are you aware of it?
I'm aware of it, but I can't say I'm a watcher. I heard he got they asked him to stop talking about the Chennai games because fans were getting pissed off.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a massive look. I'm obviously on YouTube talking about cricket. I'm a massive big fan of these players having doing YouTube content or making content regardless of where it is. I'd say in kind of football and cricket, and I suppose I watch a bit of rugby stuff as well. The best content creator off the bunch of kind of current slash former players, for my money, the two that stand out are Ashwin and Malinga. Malinga's not as doesn't make it as frequently, and obviously he does it in singular. And he talks specifically about more or less more about stroke cricket than anyone else, so maybe it's very tailored towards me. Ashwin does his stuff in what I'm going to refer to as Tamilish, so you can kind of understand it. You don't need to be fluent in Tamil to understand it. He talks a lot in English as well, but some of his content is really exceptional. And what he does, and he talks about the way he would go about trying to win games from a certain team's perspective, and he also talks about how he would try and get certain players out. Where we don't need to spend time talking about how great a player Ashwin is, and how much he thinks situations through and what could potentially happen, how much of a badger he is. We all know that. What I thought was extraordinary, though, was that Stephen Fleming came out and said he didn't know, he was unaware that Ravichandran Ashwin, who I think, I'd have to check this, but he's definitely, if he's not the top one, he's definitely the top 5 cricket YouTube channels in the world. He's definitely, he's there or thereabouts. I mean, when he goes out and says stuff about, for example, Sri Lankan players, it makes the news locally in Sri Lanka, and and I'm sure it's the case. What surprised me the most is that somebody who's potentially meant to be managing him, coaching him, doesn't know that he does this because it's not just a side hustle; it's a big part of what he does. It's kind of like saying, "I didn't know this player was married," in my opinion, and I thought it showed a massive schism in what the coach, in my opinion, should be doing, and how he should know his players and his relationship with the players, what it actually is there. And I thought I was just really surprised by it. I could be totally wrong. I've never been anywhere near a serious coach. Shut up. What do I know? But
No,
I thought it was a bit of an odd thing for Stephen Fleming to come out and say.
I agree. It's wild, right? And you'd think that Ashwin should very much be part of that brains trust. And you look at the experience they've got around that team, Fleming, Hussey, Dhoni, Jadeja, Ashwin, plus Ruturaj, the captain who's, now out. But there's a lot of old heads, a lot of wisdom around that table, a lot of smart cricket thinkers. But they just seem to be a step behind the curve, right? I think they did. I said it at the time. I stand by that. I think they overpaid for Ashwin and Jadeja. I don't think either Overton or Curran are necessarily up to it in the IPL. I'm happy to be proven wrong by a great performance by either of those guys, but I'm not sure. And I think Patirana hasn't been quite as impactful as last year, although he's bowled well in patches. I mean, really, Noor Ahmed aside, I don't think there's I don't think there's a whole lot going on in this team right now.
I agree. I concur. Since we last spoke, Punjab have fallen off a little bit, but Delhi Capitals
Delhi keeps
are
surging, man.
rocketing through.
Uh,
Yeah,
and I just don't get. I mean, I'm going to start with a negative or something that perplexes me is how they didn't announce a replacement for Harry Brook. You've got Jake Fraser McGurk, who cannot buy a run. I think he's made one double figure score all season when he looked really scratchy. The rest of the time, he's out in the first few overs playing a huge swipe. And I know they've got Faf to come back in, and they've refound Karen Nair. The Renaissance has changed their top order a little bit, but they could have, a Ben Duckett or a Jill Brevis or a LDP, or dare I say it, even a Prithvi Shaw in that top order, and just give them another option because JFMG doesn't look like he's got it going on at the moment. But apart from that, I love everything that they're coming with, right? Abhishek Porel is a really elegant left-hander he opened yesterday and was going after it. KL has rediscovered intent and boundary hitting and looks in really good touch. I like Stubbs and Ashutosh. They've found one in Nipraj or Vipraj. They Stark is in great form, and then they've got Kuldeep and Akshar. Akshar as captain, I think, has been doing really well, consistently performing with bat and ball. So Delhi look to me like they've got a lot of good stuff going for them. I think, you'd be shocked at this stage if they aren't a playoff side. And yeah, I enjoy watching this team. I do still think that the seamers can go for runs on an off day, but they've definitely got more going right for them than is going wrong at the moment.
I wonder if they might be some consideration about whether or not they might peak too early. Um,
Yeah, and I still
and
think, like we're talking about Delhi being great and Rajasthan being trash, but Rajasthan were like glimmer away from beating Delhi, really should have beaten them yesterday, which I think is
yeah,
indicative of how tumultuous this league is. And actually, that this is a pretty even year of the IPL, right? Where I don't think there is a really standout team. Uh, for me, I I don't think CSK are in the playoffs. I don't love what KKR are coming with, and I still think Lucknow are going to fall away. But apart from that, I think the other seven teams, like Mumbai and Sunrisers, you'd have to say have not had a great start. But I wouldn't be surprised if either of those teams goes on a run. I can see any of seven being in that top four, and I don't have a clear favourite for winner yet.
so I think this time next week, so back end of the week after Easter, I think it'll be clear which team has kind of written themselves out of making the playoffs. I think.
Yeah,
I
I think
think.
I agree, Marky. And I think actually, like as I said, I think whoever loses today has a bit of a mountain to climb. And then I think it's tomorrow we've got RCB versus Punjab coming up, which I think is another really
Yeah, yeah.
interesting one for who's going to start to really cement themselves towards the top of the table. What else is coming up over the weekend? Let me just have a quick look at the old schedule.
When are for me the one of the bottom four, because I think one of those four sides is going to write themselves out in the next few days.
Yes, so
Um,
we've got Rajasthan Royals Lucknow on Saturday. Uh, that's pretty must win for Rajasthan, isn't it? Uh,
yeah, I think Rajasthan need to get a couple of wins the next. If they need to win two of the next three games to kind of basically be up for a shot as we get towards the business end for it.
and then
And
Mumbai Chennai on Sunday afternoon. That's another big one, the money derby of two bottom dwelling
yeah,
teams at the moment. You think that if if Mumbai
if
lose against Sunrisers and Chennai, then they're pretty out, and if Chennai lose that one, you'd think that they're struggling.
yeah, and I'm interested to see where Sunrisers are at, right? Because I mean, when Abhishek was smacking the ball around and the stadium was going nuts, um, and I just thought Hyderabad's the place to be in the IPL, isn't it? Like they've got a vibe there. The kit looks amazing. I mean, you look at the bench and you've got some of the coolest people ever involved in cricket. This isn't a we're talking about franchise cricket, so I'm allowed to call various Australian players cool, which we're now about to do. Pat Cummins and Travis Head are probably the two coolest Australians to play cricket in our lifetime. And the bench looks cool. Murali's at the bench, obviously a favourite of mine. They've got loads of interesting players as well. You're like, it's an interesting. It feels like and I know that obviously they got to the final last year, but it feels like the hipster choice.
Yeah, even though they're slumping, it's still a bit of a vibe, right? Although
It's still a bit of a vibe.
I'm
Yeah.
insistent on Punjab. It's the hipster Hyderabad. It's the new thing. The kids are still getting onto it. Weird that Punjab are playing RCB tomorrow and then the return fixtures on Sunday. That seems like slightly dodgy scheduling, but who am I to dig out the BCCI or whoever draws this up?
Yeah, there must be reasoning for that as well. I don't know. Maybe there's a super quick route between the two places, and sometimes they don't even play them home and away. Right? They just play them in like random locations.
Yeah, I think I'm
Like,
happy to see it twice in 3 days because I think it's a really good fixture. I think that there should
yeah,
be runs on offer there. I mean, RCB we haven't touched on yet, but they look to be flying. I wasn't that hot on them uh, before the tournament started. I thought that their lack of spinners and their batters' kind of weakness against spin was going to be problematic, but it hasn't really proved so far. I think they had a little bit of a struggle against Delhi this time last week, but against Rajasthan on the weekend, I mean, they came out and smoked them after Rajasthan had made it look like a really tricky pitch to bat on.
I uh, isn't this what RCB do though? They always get to the playoffs and then they kind of fade away. Isn't that classic RCB?
That is quite their classic. And was it last year where they were nowhere at the halfway stage and then came really hard in the second half of the
Yeah.
tournament? I just quite like their. I like what Kohli and Salt are offering up top. I think Patidar's really good. I'm still Jitesh and David are having a great time. I think the jury's still out about where Liam Livingstone is at this stage of his career, and I think the other kind of question mark I have around them is if you can see out Hazelwood and Bovey, do you then get kind of weaker bowlers who you can target a bit? Yesh Dayal, Krunal has gone pretty well. He's always fairly economical. He's not hugely a wicket-taking threat. But yeah, I wonder if that bowling attack has kind of chinks in it. But I think every team, you could say, has a few little weaknesses, right? We've talked at length about how Gujarat are kind of their batting drops off a cliff in their lower middle order, but they've had the kind of top order strength to see them through it. So it's one of those seasons where there are a lot of kind of imperfections around, but teams seem to be navigating those, or at least the teams at the top of the table do.
I know I feel like I say this all the time. I'm like, at some point, RCB have got to give Neil Thishra a run because he picked up wickets last season. He was a real handful for batters last season, and I think
Yeah,
slinging. I mean, you you mentioned Patarana earlier. I think even if your slingers are at kind of 70 or 80% capacity, it's much more difficult for batters to score runs off them and causes loads of problems they aren't expecting.
I guess
Than
the
kind of
question is,
a regular steamer.
I guess, do they have another domestic batter who they could bring in for Livy to free up that spot? I think if they've got a guy who they think is young and could potentially do some bits, then that would make sense for me. They've also, I also really like Jacob Bethel, and I'm surprised. I think if they were losing games, the Livingston for Bethel switch would have happened. But the fact that they keep on winning, that Livingston offers a bit of spin, they've been turning to him for a sort of over or two
Yeah.
generally.
Bethel offers spin though, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I think it's not quite of the quality of Livingston, and he's just a left armour, so I guess it's a bit more match-up dependent, whereas they feel like Livy can
Yeah, yeah.
bowl in any situation. But yeah, I would love to see them bring Tushara in, strengthen their bowling, and give a local player a go in that lower middle order, because you've got to say they've been getting kind of pretty scant returns from Livingston.
Yeah, yeah. Livingston's an odd player though, right? Because on his day he's unbelievable, but you got to kind of tread water a little bit until that moment comes. Sometimes,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And you're
you know he's the kind of player. I mean, arguably Tim David is as well. They've got a couple, a few players in this side where you're like they're not going to. They're not the players who are going to end a tournament with averaging kind of 28, 30. It's either going to be all or nothing, and at some point they're almost guaranteed to come big for you at some stage. So maybe, though, I mean, Jacob
yeah,
Bethel. I don't think there's any player in England who's talked up as much, or any young player, I should say,
no,
as
he's
him.
really
So
highly rated. He's dynamite
yeah,
in the field. I mean, they have got consistent returns out of David, which has been surprising. I think they've got more from him more out of him than Mumbai ever did. But yeah, you're right. Livingston's that guy who goes through a long period of famine and then suddenly feasts, scores 80 or 30 and wins you a game. Another guy I put in
yeah,
that bracket is Glenn Maxwell, who also hasn't really been able to buy a run up at Punjab.
yeah. I mean, but remember this time? Was it this time last year when he was trying to get himself taken out of?
Yeah, I think he did get
Um,
himself taken out of the
he
tournament,
get,
right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I mean, he's had amazing years. He's had awful years. I think there was a famous year when he didn't hit a six in the IPL that people were talking about. I wonder how long it is before he wins Punjab a game, or whether we're going to see that lean streak continue. Uh, Punjab's a really interesting one because I think I've said this before, but they seem so reliant on Indian players they fielded in that 245. I think they had an all Indian top five where they went Aya, Prab Simran, Aya, Badoni. Is it Badoni? Am I getting confused?
yeah.
And Shashank. So, um, I like Punjab. I,
I know you do. You keep telling me
I,
every week, and
I
I'm
keep
like,
telling you
nah.
how much I like
For me,
Punjab.
they're still the banter side. Until they win it three times in a row, I'm still going to consider them a banter side.
Well,
They've
yeah,
had
well,
a
I said
good
their best
season.
bowling was really good before the tournament, and they were getting spanked by everyone
Yeah.
before Monday. But I just think they're watchable. They're one of these teams who I want to watch when I wake up in the morning and see who's playing in the IPL today, and it's Punjab. I feel like I've been given a little treat, like I've had a chocolate from my advent calendar.
I think I'm good. So I'm gonna. I think all the teams are quite watchable, even the kind of underperforming ones.
Yeah,
And
I know what you mean. Although I'm not that gassed to watch Chennai aside from Patarana, but there's like a kind of morbid curiosity that
I
goes.
still like watching MS come out and do whatever he's going to do. I think that's worth it, and Ratchin's worth it. They were like even CSK. I could make an argument for watching them.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not
The
sleeping on
team
any.
that I think is the least watchable, actually thinking about it, and I don't know why I feel like this because I don't think it's justified. It's just a personal thing. Is the Titans, and maybe it's because they're kind of almost quite machine-like.
They are
Uh,
they're solid rather than spectacular, right? And you kind of know what you're
yeah,
going to get from them. Saisadashin's so consistent,
yeah.
and Butler's been great. Rutherford's been surprisingly good, and they've been pretty solid with the ball. I'm not huge on watching KKR this time around, Marky. I don't know how you feel about them. Uh,
I think they're an awful side this year. However, I've still got the cachet from last year within me, where I'm like, they were so excited to watch that I'm still willing to give them a go with the hope that when he's 6, 7 games in, they could turn it round. It's not
yeah,
a
I mean,
total
you
lost
can't.
cause.
It's write anyone off at your peril, and
Harold, yeah,
but I do think that they are another team who got it a bit wrong at the Super Auction. But who knows? Maybe Dre Russ turns into like 2019 Dre Russ again as one last dance, and I'd love to see him slam, like a 80 off 20 and win them a game. I really like watching Raghavanshi bat. Having said I don't enjoy them, I think he's a real talent. There's so many good Indian top order batters, aren't there? Uh, Unleash them to leagues across the world and let's watch them all year round.
let them play BCCI, let them play knock down your walls. I'm trying to channel my Ronald Reagan. Um, should we move on to the PSL?
Yeah, I think
Should we?
before we do, we should do our halfway predictions of who's going to be
Oh
in
yeah.
playoffs.
Let me get the table up
Yeah,
again.
get the table up. I'm doing the same before I say something really stupid.
I'm gonna say Capitals, Titans. Oh, there's a bit of me that wants to say Sunrisers, and then as a fourth pick, do you know what? I'm gonna back like that. I'm gonna back the Super
Okay,
Giants.
yeah, your team, your boys.
Yeah, yeah, my team.
I am. I think.
Though I think I actually want the Sunrisers top.
Yeah,
Like,
I think we should get ourselves some IPL shirts for this podcast. Really.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
I am going to be really boring, and I think I'll back the current top four: Delhi, Gujarat, RCB, and Punjab. Although I'm still higher on Mumbai than most people. I think they've lost quite a lot of close games where they haven't quite put it together, but they've had good performances. And now they've got Bumrah back. They've moved Sky back to three. They're done with that Will Jacks at three disaster of a call. Uh, Sunrisers, I mean, I think they should play all their home games on that strip too, where there are about a million runs every time a game's played on it. And I can see them going on a run. I still think they can beat any team on their day. I just wonder whether their approach means it's too high risk, too high variance, and they're getting to a stage where they can't afford to lose that many more games. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go on a run and start beating everyone. I kind of love to see it. Uh, but yeah, the current top four for me, which I'm sure is not going to be correct, and someone's going to fall away massively, and someone else will go on a bit of a late season riser, which we always love to see, don't we, Marky?
Oh, we love it. That's what the things about this league we probably love the most. I'd say that and all the money. Not that any
Yeah,
of it ever filters our
the
way,
money which we
but
don't get any of.
yeah,
But yeah,
it's just it's just
actually,
it's just great seeing these young guys go out there and make loads of money. I love it. It's why
yeah. If anything,
sometimes
this league costs me a load of money because
there's
it
money. Yeah,
suffers my work, and I gamble on it and just constantly lose. So yeah, if anyone wants to pay us to do this, then we're open.
we are open. We will take your money. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
we'll, we'll take
just
it all.
just breaking even off the back of the IPL would be great for me.
Be great. Right, should we move to the PSL? We are 2/3 games into the PSL season. What's your big takeaway so far from it, Nick?
Big scores, man. They've been some roads, haven't there? And I've got to say, I haven't been able to watch that much of it. It's a disaster that it's on at the same time as the IPL. I think their hand was forced with the Champions Trophy, but next year I hope it moves back to its own little February slot so that we can give it our full attention. I did have two TV screens out in my living room on the weekend, and I was dual screening the PSL and the IPL when James Vince scored a blasting 100.
Blinder. Yeah.
Absolute blinder. What's my big takeaway? I mean, Islamabad 3 from 3. They're getting really good stuff out of Jason Holder. And at the top of the order, a guy who I've never heard of, Sabzada Farhan, who's been scoring runs for fun. I like the look. I mean, they've got a bit of experience in that side, the likes of Shabad, Imad, Riley Meredith. Bit of youth as well in Mohamed Shahzad and Nazim. They look good. At the other end, you've got Baba's side, right? Peshwa Zaimi, who've been, I think, blown out in both of their first two games. I'm sure there'll be rumblings about the fact that Baba is yet to score a run, or I mean, he's scored one. Has he got one and none? Uh,
Yeah.
but I think that team will be all right. I think that he'll be all right. I think that they will get better. Uh, I kind of like the look of their batting with Saim, Baba, and Mitch Owen and Mohamed Harris as a top four. I like that. I guess their bowling is probably their weaker suit with some names that I'm not too familiar with.
I think we flagged this a couple of weeks ago, but there's two things. My two major takeaways from the PSL from a kind of IPL perspective is how many good Pakistani players are missing out on the IPL. I'm not going to go into that because we all know that's very well documented, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Another cricket podcast talking about that isn't going to make an ounce of difference. But also the number of really good foreign players who I see playing in the PSL who could definitely do bits in the IPL. And also the other thing that is quite stark from when you compare the two leagues side by side is, and I think this can simultaneously be true with the statement I previously made about good foreign players, is how lazy some of the recruitment is in the PSL and how many players you're seeing from England, Australia, and a few kind of Kiwis who are getting gigs in the PSL who wouldn't really be anywhere near their national sides anymore. And there is definitely better players in those countries and in other parts of the world who could come in and do a job. Me and you could rattle off 5 or 6 Sri players who are better than foreign players currently playing the PSL. I'm pretty sure there's better Bangladeshi players, better Zimbabwean players, better Afghan players, and so, probably absolutely loads of South Africans could come in and do a better job and just raise the standard of that league if they needed it to be raised. Because part of it, when I say lazy recruitment, I know a lot of it is kind of money based. They're not necessarily paying people to work on recruitment full time around the year, looking at different people, seeing what different trends are, like IPL teams are doing. But I don't think it would cost that much to put a structure in place that meant that Peshawar, when they were recruiting, could have deeper depth charts that were looking a little bit beyond what did, I call him out all the time, what did Tom Coe Cadmore do last year in various
I knew his
franchise
name was
cricket?
coming.
You knew it. You knew it.
And
I don't.
I,
I wish him no ill. I just think there's better players than him. I
I
think
would.
I don't, if you sat Dan, he'd probably say there is as well. Like,
I do agree, Marky, but then again, like I mean, I'm back to what do I know, because I thought Colin Monroe completely cooked at 38, and he started the tournament. I'm like, when I saw his name, I was like, this guy can't still be
yeah,
churning out in franchise tournaments. He started with 59 and not out, 40 and 48, striking at a decent clip. So
but
it's
what is that? What is that telling you? Right? Is that telling you that Colin Moreau can still do it at the highest level, or is it telling you that there is a level slightly above this? We know that the best players in the world aren't playing in this league, but is there will and endeavour to go and find the next batch of players who are cutting through? Um,
Yeah, I know. I do agree with you to a certain extent that this is not quite as high a level as the IPO. It's definitely a good rung below. And,
yeah,
you know, calling out some of the English guys, I guess someone like David Willey or Kola Cadmore, or at this stage of his career, Chris Jordan, they're probably like a, a good bit below IPL standard. But I guess that experience here can still be vital. I would like them to take a punt on some younger, more exciting overseas player. I'd like leagues to introduce it. Like, I mean, maybe a one overseas under 25 could be a good rule for some leagues.
yeah, yeah,
You know, to like get the hottest young talent who haven't necessarily like really made their name on the franchise circuit yet, getting into teams. I'd like to see that. It's a pretty
yeah.
harebrained
Or
scheme that I've just come up with.
or one associate player could have, that they could have the best player from Scotland or whatever if
Yeah, I
they
did
wanted.
see that Islamabad have picked up this American guy, Andres Goosh, I think he's
Yeah,
called, who I assume is a South African American import, but he's opening the batting for Islamabad. He hasn't got any runs yet, but good to see players from outside of the big nations that are constantly kind of being plugged.
but
I don't know what's going on. I would have thought there'd be more South Africans in this league. I keep talking about Brevis.
the only thing I can think of is I don't know that maybe there might be a thing where players might be being told, look, if you're playing in this league, you've got no chance of playing the IPL, or IPL teams are going to stay away from you for a few years. I don't know. I don't know if that's happening. I'm just kind of suggesting, because relations between India and Pakistan are strange and weird. They shouldn't be like that. Obviously, we want them to defrost, but they're icy between the two of them. So I don't know. Maybe players are making that judgment, saying, "I'm not going to put myself in to PSL to look for a PSL contract because I want to play in the IPL." Um, I don't know. I mean, I would say if you're a player, just go out and do what you can, where you can, as many places as you can, to the best of your ability, and then hopefully, get so good you become irresistible to people taking off. Nick's not, but Nick basically is Sri Lankan now. If someone told me that CSK were going to build a whole bowling attack around the Sri Lankan, well, 1.2 Sri Lankan players not too long ago, now one Sri Lankan player, I would have said that's like 20, 30 years in the future, right? I didn't think that was ever going to happen. It's happened. If you're good enough, teams will take you, right?
Mm.
I know that's different for Pakistani players, but if that is a consideration some players are having around the world, then I don't think you need to be that worried about it. Nick, should we wrap up there?
Yeah, let's, man. And I'm looking forward to a bumper weekend. And I guess we'll be back next week.
Wicked. I'll see you all next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.